Breakfast Lounge. Your daily talk show on 102.7 FM. Featuring special guests with your host, Lady Grace. Now let's get started.
And welcome back, radio listeners. Of course, I mentioned it early this morning. So for those of you who probably weren't listening, my guest this morning, for my viewers, of course, on my Facebook page, a pleasant good morning or good evening to those of you in the Netherlands viewing this live broadcast. Of course, my guest is the longest serving member of Parliament. She's served as Prime Minister for 2 terms to be exact, and she's currently the chairperson of Parliament. Let me welcome back home the MP herself, and a voice, of course, that made quite an impact at the IPCO recently, IPCO held meeting. MP Sarah Wescott Williams. How you doing this morning?
Grace, good morning. Good morning to our listeners and our viewers, and whether it's afternoon or evening in other parts of the world which are tuned into this program, greetings to everyone, and of course here in the studio and our people on St.Maarten. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here, Grace. And let me put that up front. I know there's a lot of talk/criticism about what some persons refer to as the radio touring. I'm not into that. I'm not competing for radio waves, with anyone. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about things that we know are living in the community without a doubt. So I want to thank you and just mention you had asked this from even before I left for the IPCO.
Correct.
And we agreed it would be immediately following.
Right.
So we got back yesterday and here I am.
Yeah, that's why yesterday during one of my interviews, and someone said, one of my guests mentioned something regarding the proposal, actually to ask you a question. I said, well, she's currently up in the sky, so when she gets down, when she lands, then I'll ask her that question. And first and foremost, I want to talk to you about your proposal to strengthen IPCO has been embraced and hailed a success by parliamentarians from Aruba, Curacao, St.Maarten, and the Netherlands, addressing the importance of collaboration, understanding, and mutual respect as the foundation of a strong kingdom partnership. This agreement, MP, goes beyond words and a piece of paper, so to speak, which also includes one of the things that the Dutch allowing us to have a voice regarding the slavery past and reparatory justice. Is that correct? What guarantee do we have, though, on that?
And I think Grace, the question, what you asked there, what kind of guarantee, is exactly what the proposal is for a new approach, a more, like we like to call it in IMCO, impactful approach to IPCO. And it has to do with ensuring that these discussions lead to somewhere and they lead to something. That's in essence why we have spent a lot of time, not only during IPCO, but before IPCO, preparing to give it a slightly different approach. For several IPCOs, especially in the recent past, my thing was like, guys, I don't mind getting together. I like getting together with my colleagues and we could talk for days, but at the end of the day, the IPCO platform needs to yield something. So every meeting I would start, I recommended, I said, I want for every IPCO meeting that we follow up on the discussions and decisions we had the last time around. So I said, I want that on the agenda. So said, so done. But I still was not feeling that we gave ourselves a certain responsibility, the responsibility of accountability to the IPCO itself and to each other. So the last time in Aruba, we had IPCO, and I mentioned that again. I like, guys, I believe this platform is necessary. It's the only platform where the 4 parliaments get together and discuss matters. I say, but I want to see more coming out of the dialogues and what we're having. And so I was asked if I could come with some proposals in that direction, which I did. Sat down, and put a certain structure in place for a proposal. And that's what. So the proposal outlines several things. How we prepare for meetings, how we select topics. Don't select 8, 9 topics, and then we only superficially deal with the different topics. Let us structure this thing. And when we make decisions or agreements amongst each others, let us hold each other responsible for what we decided we will do. And so that proposal with all of those elements, talking about a main theme, talking about following up, talking about being responsible to get back to your governments and then hear the position of the governments and then see what we do with them. So all of these are approaches in this document for this proposal for a more, and I use the word that many in IPCO like to use, for a more result-oriented IPCO.
It's basically putting everyone on the same page.
Yes.
Not Curacao saying one thing, St.Maarten saying another
and
thing.
being clear about what it is we want to achieve. First of all, why are we even coming together? And so based on the proposal, the main theme for the one just concluded was cooperation in the kingdom, because in essence that's what it's about. Because if we don't want to cooperate, if we don't want to be here constitutionally speaking where we are, then your discussions in IPCO would take another direction.
Okay.
But if we agree, well, let us, at least for right now, work on bettering the cooperation and understanding, then this is the path we need to follow. And so all participants really were pleased with the fact that also based on that discussion, on that discussion paper, we had the state secretary present. And I believe it is something we should continue to push for, to get especially the kingdom ministers. So the kingdom minister of defense, the kingdom minister of foreign affairs, that we get these functionaries, that we get them in IPCO to give sort of account to the parliaments there. And not only that their accountability is towards the chambers in the Netherlands, because if there are specific kingdom areas, and to me, those kingdom ministers of those specific areas, they have to give account to all of the countries, the Minister of Defense, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which will bring us to another topic just now, the one about the UN vote.
Correct.
But in any case, I believe so. As for starters, it could be that those ministers and others come to the IPCO to answer to the 4 parliaments.
Correct. Right. So we need representation, and this is not a document that will be thrown in the garbage, like what was said in the previous IPCO meetings, that after the delegation leaves, and then they take the documents and throw them in the garbage. And that's one of the reasons why I asked what is the guarantee that there will be a follow up, and that you actually will continue to monitor these situations in the Netherlands to make sure that what was actually brought forward will actually in reality be adopted by the Netherlands delegation as well. And that's a responsibility of the parliaments. A very specific item, and it was a point of discussion, was the matter of data protection, personal data protection. Now, Grace, there's a lot of talk about exchanging and sharing information. This is also about the persons, about you and me and everyone else. And so how do we protect that? And so the discussions are now taking place about putting all of that in a kingdom law. However, one of the Dutch parliamentarians in IPCO said, but wait a minute, let us ask the kingdom government, the ones responsible for kingdom legislation, let us ask them some questions regarding this matter of data protection and them wanting it on a kingdom level. So questions were formulated that now the IPCO formulated some questions regarding data protection to send to the kingdom government, and we all agree to that. So that is going. Now, next IPCO, we need to follow up on it. IPCO is the body, the institution, the consultation that decided, this thing about democratic deficit. We are tired of the
on and ongoing discussions. What is democratic deficit? What is it really? It is that within our structure, and it happens in our structure, the representation of the people are not, so the parliaments are not always part of the decision making regarding the people. That's when we talk democratic deficits. We have a kingdom government. We do not have a kingdom parliament. IPCO is not a kingdom parliament. IPCO is a consultation forum. And so this democratic deficit, in 2024, IPCO decided, let every country put a member forward. We're going to form a small committee, and we're going to have a review done of the things regarding the democratic deficit. Because, Grace, I think the first official report, and there might have been before even, goes back to like 2009, if not earlier. Wow. And so we're writing, we're researching, we're studying, we're writing. And then when some recommendations come up about how to deal with it, then we kind of put it aside a little while, we wait, and then we start over again.
Right.
Committee. So this committee in particular, in which St.Maarten is represented by Dr. Nilda Arduin and her colleagues, her 3 other colleagues, and they're now going to bring into perspective where we are with the democratic deficit with some recommendations. And again, the responsibility of IPCO, that was the one who basically put this committee together, is going to be, are we serious about the results that will come from that? And thus, in the past IPCO, the one just finished, we had a presentation from these members. And in October, we are going to get their report.
Okay.
How are we going to deal with that report? Are we going to be serious about that report on the democratic deficit? The matter of a kingdom conference. A kingdom conference is a conference on the highest level between the governments within the kingdom.
Where will that conference be held?
And that's the thing. So now, this conference, and Grace, for years, going back to Plasterk and those, yes, we need to have a kingdom conference, because in there we're going to be talking about some of the important issues regarding this kingdom relation that we have.
Right.
And so it was kept being put off, and we got to talk with the others got to talk with us, etc., etc. Now we have a commitment by the State Secretary, again, Van den Burg,
Erik van den Burg,
that we're going to have a kingdom conference this year.
Nice.
The proposal is November. St.Maarten made the offer to host that. Now, I don't know if those details are going to end up the will, but in any case, the vision for this conference is for this year, for it to take place this year. Another matter, we need to keep our finger on the pulse okay? Because for years I have been saying, this Kingdom Conference must come. It was an agreement when we were working towards 10-10-10 that there will be yearly Kingdom Conferences on the highest level. On the highest level. The question in IPCO these past days was how, because usually the Kingdom Conference is between the governments of the kingdom, but now the parliaments are saying we want some input into that. So my direct question to the State Secretary was, can you assure us that you will be looking at the role the parliaments can play in the Kingdom Conference?
Okay.
And he said, first of all, he thinks it's a good idea that the parliaments have some kind of involvement in this Kingdom Conference, and he will talk to his colleagues. So we have that jotted down. We'll be checking on that.
Okay.
So we have the report of the Democratic Deficit Committee in October. We have the Kingdom Conference, and the intention is that will take place in November. And then in January 2027, the parliaments get back together in IPCO.
IPCO here in
St.Maarten.
Right. Okay. Awesome. I like that. Now, St.Maarten, also during your conference in The Hague, St.Maarten and Aruba-Curaçao also objected to the Dutch abstention on U.S. slavery resolution. How did that go about? Because we want to be the voice to speak about the slavery in our islands, we can't really have the Netherlands talk to represent us. Of course, they played a major role in all of it. But when you talk about slavery on a whole, you would need representatives from the islands to actually be the voice of that. So let's touch on that a bit. How did that go about?
We know exactly what came down.
Correct.
Unfortunately,
right.
in the UN,
Right.
exactly, and they abstained. The Netherlands / the kingdom, because that in itself, I think, is where much of the pain is. The Netherlands, the kingdom. The Netherlands is the country. And then you have the kingdom, which should be of all 4 countries. And as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't have a parliament. That level, kingdom government does not have a parliament. And even a representation in the kingdom council of ministers, in which our ministers plenipotentiary participate, they are they're not a full-fledged minister. They are the representative of the prime minister and the council of ministers in the kingdom council of ministers. Okay, so you have that body. So the kingdom is actually who voted or abstained from voting in this particular case. First of all, so the minute I heard of that vote as a member of parliament, really? So I wrote to our Prime Minister. Prime Minister, were you aware of this? Were you even consulted before this vote came down? Did anybody from St.Maarten, were they part of the meeting of the UN, etc., etc.?
Right.
That appeared not to be the case on no island. So no island's government, no country's government was contacted about this particular vote.
Basically represent any of the islands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then what not bothered me, but what made me even more concerned was the reaction to that happening. And it was like, oops, well, at least we take note for the next time. And I don't know if you're going to get an exact proposal for a voting like that next time. And you should look at it, I'm saying to them, deeper than that, than just, oops, next time we know. No, you're voting in the UN on behalf of the kingdom on a matter such as slavery past and the consequences thereof, but you're going to say, but you're not going to take contact with it. That to me ain't just a little oversight. Oops, I forgot to call or contact them. So in any case, every IPCO and otherwise as well, the Caribbean countries get together. That's what we call a tripartite. Right. And usually when we have IPCO, we will make use of that possibility to have a tripartite. In that tripartite, the sentiments from the countries, Aruba, Curacao, and St.Maarten, were the same pertaining to this item. And we no. One, we are going to express our serious objection to the way that went and ask for further accountability. Why, how, and how to prevent it in the future.
Correct.
So that objection letter, if you wish, was drafted and sent. And we inform our Dutch counterparts of what we did and basically explain them why it was so important for us to take that stance. So they know it, we inform them, so it ain't like we there meeting with them, but then, behind their backs we went quickly.
Correct.
No, we told them.
Right.
We told them this letter of objection, for the lack of a better word, has been sent. And that regards the way that the vote on the slavery past and declaring slavery a crime against humanity that was stable in the UN and in which the Dutch minister thought it right to abstain from that vote. It's one thing if you say, I'm for. Okay, you're for, you're for.
Why do you think he abstained, though?
I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know. And that question that you asked there is exactly the issue with abstentions. Because if you come out and you vote for, you could agree with the vote for or not, but at least okay, they were for it. So there's no issue there. They're for it. If you come out and you vote against, again, you might agree. You vote against something, Grace, I might agree or disagree, but I know you're against. But abstaining, what does that say?
What does that mean? By you just not saying or doing anything
what
about
does why did you abstain?
Yeah.
What did you think? What did you know? And then of course, then people start to fill in that question themselves.
And that's dangerous.
They abstain because they think that it might have major financial consequences for them. Yeah, true or not? You know what I'm saying? And everybody starts to give the abstention vote their own filling in,
right,
and so we sent to tell them no, we are not, we can't accept that the way that came down one, and so we need to talk about the representation of the entire country at international bodies such as the UN.
Right. Now, let's come home here for a moment. MP, the major headline circling right now in all papers, of course, not all papers, we have one paper, all the news outlets and media, is the resignation of the transition manager of NVGEBE, Mr. Thomas Rochendorf. Now, it came as a bit of a surprise to many people, seeing that his tenure lasted a little over a year at the post. Now with this revelation, MP, GEBE is already in a financial crisis. Yeah. There still isn't a complete management structure at the company. And then a protest march against GEBE billing practices is also set for next week, which is on Monday. I'm sure you've heard about that, MP.
Yes,
now, MP, firstly, what do you make of the resignation of Mr. Rochendorf? And secondly, what needs to happen moving forward at NVGEBE so the company gets back on track? Because the island too is still suffering due to a lack of adequate leadership at the company.
Wow. Grace, yes, I am aware of the protest that is being organized for the 15th of June. That's one thing. What do I think about the resignation? I don't want to say predicted it, but I told someone maybe 2 months ago the following. I said, in all that is happening, it would not surprise me that suddenly we get the resignation of Mr. Rochendorf. I told that to someone about, I would say maybe 2 weeks ago, because there was too much happening. I have stated this before and I want to repeat it, Grace. I don't know if the structure of a government-owned company is the right structure for a company that is delivering our water and electricity and has a monopoly on that. I don't know if that's a right structure. So like we know as a government company structure, we know what it's like. And why? Because, and this is what we have seen played out over a very long period of time, because imagine what that structure entails in simple words. You have the shareholder, which is the government. Some people think that and they say it's the people, whatever the case may be. Formally speaking, the government is the shareholder. So the government, with that hat of shareholder on, can only act in the interest of the company, okay? And if the finances of the company does not allow certain measures to be taken, such as giving relief, the government with its shareholder cap cannot enforce that. They can't, because then the government will be held responsible for the decisions they take as shareholder that could be negative for the company. On the other hand, the government, general government, is responsible for the well-being of the people. And in being that, they need to take decisions, again, in the interest of the people. They need to recognize what our people are going through right now because of the oil crisis and other crises that are taking place affecting the people directly.
All right.
So if you then as government, and that's why we have seen where, for example, the government, the prime minister and other ministers have instructed GB to give certain relief, but GB is saying, no, I can't. The company situation does not allow it, financially speaking. And then there is really nothing that the government, as the government, can actually do, because then
your hands are basically tied.
That's the thing. And that's what I mean, just to make sure everybody understands what I'm saying, that and I've stated this before, I've stated this to all, I don't think it's the right structure for your company. GB has a concession with the government. That means an agreement to do XYZ, for which they pay a concession fee. So they are responsible. And things like looking at the tariffs in terms of, whether they're, how they're developing, what you could do about them, etc., etc. So you have the concession and you have an electricity ordinance. Okay, those are the guiding rules and regulations pertaining to this relationship. However, that concession agreement, which also puts the responsibility for alternative energy sources with the company, what has been done in that respect? Because then you get politics, and some people don't like to hear the word, but it's actual politics. There's nothing wrong with the word of politics. Parliament is about politics. That's how we get elected. You know what I'm saying? It depends on the context that you give to the word politics. But politics got involved, and we haven't seen GB, let me use it carefully, being able to live up to the concession agreement. So now then we had to deal with getting getting a new board in place, or new board members rather. We had to deal with getting CEO, CFO, and COO in place. All of that took so much time. So much time, while we should be focusing on the elements of the company that affect the people. And I'm like, but how long are we going to go through all of this? How long are we going to go through all of this? Because then immediately everybody, like in their role, I'm shareholder, that's one level. I am the supervisory board of directors. Remember what happened when the government firstly asked those who were there to resign, like we resigning.
Right.
So that took a hold. And then we got these persons who were appointed. Now some of them, I'm still getting the reports coming in. Some of them have made impossible demands on the government/shareholder and the company. And now look at us here again.
What kind of impossible demands are we talking about?
I'm talking conditions like salaries and the like. Okay? And from what I've understood, they were impossible to be met. Not only because of the financial situation of the company, but also the precedents that can be established. In fact, on Friday we should be, I think it's Friday, yes, we should be continuing with a discussion in Parliament about GB. But that meeting has been ongoing, and in the meantime, so many things are happening and have happened. And right now, somebody asked me, how would you describe where we are with GB right now? So I'm getting information as I returned to the island yesterday, and I gave them a Dutch acronym, terug bij af, as far as I'm concerned, because we are back at the position where we did not have persons on the C level, as we call it. So the CEO, COO, and CFO. And but we cannot, and the government is called to act, and to act promptly in this regard.
Is the nomination or the selection of a CFO, CEO at GEBE, like you said, political in a sense of who actually decides who sits at the helm of the GEBE in regard to Mr. Rochendorf? I believe he was actually chosen by the Prime Minister.
Well, and that it went through a process. Okay, so it went through a process, but again,
so who has the last word here?
The structure of GB and government-owned companies, sometimes those appointments are with the supervisory board of director, but they have to inform the shareholder. Other times the last word is with the shareholder, and then it is executed by the supervisory board of directors, who would then negotiate with the persons who have been nominated to fill those positions in terms of salaries and whatever other conditions of employment. So that's how that relationship goes. But right now, government, and it is in so many cases, cases, going to have to think a little out of the box in terms of getting some kind of stable situation in GB, also looking at the long-term plans. Where are we, for example, with the engines that need to be ordered for GB? And in the meantime, the engines that we are using here, which we have been told, need major maintenance, etc., because of their age. So there is so much coming at us right now in terms of GB, in terms of the country in general. The country in general, that I honestly and truly believe, and I've stated this, we need to, as a country, we need to have a national dialogue on the directions of this country. We honestly need to, I can't say take time out, I can't say take a step back, but we need to find the time to kind of look at where things are at with the development of this country, and just take a deep breath and let us, for St. Maarten, figure out how we want to move forward. It's not only GB, electricity, fuel, and that kind of thing, but there are decisions that need to be taken on the highest level, a national level, regarding certain directions of this country.
Yeah, MP, I'm sure you've heard about the newly formed entity ACPSXM, which is Association for Consumer Protection, St.Maarten.
Yeah.
Now, they're also the entity responsible for the protest march on Monday, like I mentioned. Can I get your opinion, you don't have to, on that new body that seeks to help and address consumer concerns and issues on the island? One of them right now being the GB billing saga. What would be your response to that? Because one of the other things is there was a redacted. Answer this first, and then I'll go to that redacted 40-page report.
Oh, okay.
What do you feel about that? They're forming this association.
I think a consumer association on St. Maarten, a consumer protection association, is long overdue. Years ago, we kind of had one, and why I say we kind of had one, because it was established, but then it, a consumer protection. I mean, that's a common thing throughout the world. That's one thing. I don't know about the objectives of this particular one, because I haven't read them, so, and I don't know if it's only for GB or not. I don't know, so I can't say to that. But a general consumer protection agency, there's where the consumer can go and say, look what happened to me in this case, in that case, and whatever. So I don't know the details, because an association which you have members of, so people become members of the association, and then the association is established with particular objectives in mind. That's it. That formally established as such. That's one thing. I try, and I have asked questions, not only publicly, not only in meetings, but even to the ministers responsible for the matters that regard GB. What is really going on with GB? How come you could still, and I've seen them, we have seen them on social media, persons could get their GB bill, and now the fuel clause is a killer as is, okay? A clause that usually hovered in the vicinity of, let's say, I think like maybe 27, 29 cents is now like over 40 cents. And then of course the thing is, it's because of the oil prices. Okay, we understand that. Still, you get people getting bills that have their regular monthly consumption, and then like an outstanding of 10, 11, 12, some more thousands of guilders. Is that persons not having paid? Is it an estimation of what the people did? I honestly don't know, So where does this come in? So is it all that GB is saying, no, all our facts are together now, our financial facts? So if I send you, MP Wescott, a bill that says you owe 500 guilders for this month, and you have 15,000 outstanding. That 15,000, for example, can you show me which periods I have not paid for that amounted to that? It would be my question. So Is it an estimation that is put on the bills of people, or is it actually established? Well, you didn't pay anything, because we also have the claims here. But the period that you told me I didn't pay anything, I paid. You tell me just pay something like what So all of those, it is so unclear. It is so unclear, and I don't know. And I said to myself, I personally will go to GB and ask certain questions.
Okay.
And see what answer I get. You know what I'm saying? So with someone's bill, because I honestly and truly, I want to understand. I want to understand what is happening. What are our people getting when, because what is the frustration out there? One, government, you're not doing anything about the increasing price of the fuel cost. Okay? Because that GB
water.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I sent a message for them to bring you some water.
Because that one, Grace, the fuel clause is something that GB can adjust based on what they say they are paying for fuel. We have a whole discussion going on. Yeah, but the amount that they're being charged for fuel is too much. That's another discussion. On the other hand, the tariffs itself, GB cannot increase those without government's permission.
Which they did.
They can. And when they ask for government's permission, they have to motivate it. Why? And you see what I'm saying? So when we hear the frustration in the population, for a while it was because our current, our electricity is not stable. We had blackouts and whatever have you. No, it's about the billing. It's about what I'm understanding, people not being able to get clear answers to what they're being billed for. And then you have, which is the cost factor. How far will the average St.Maartener be able to deal with these skyrocketing clauses and cost without getting some kind of relief from government? And how can government give relief when, one, they can't enforce relief on the company, and government has its own financial woes to look after?
So your hands are basically tied, is what you're saying, where this GB situation is concerned.
And that's why, and we can't keep lamenting what we know to be so, like these things, for example. And that's why I keep stressing, when we talk about alternative energy, let us start somewhere. Let us think of how we can get money to assist the average households.
But it just can't be lip service either. MP.
Exactly. And that's the point. And so if we get some kind of alternative energy solutions also for the individual households, be able to give some panels to people so that their electricity bill is not so high. That is where we have to get in this discussion. And then when we go here, and again back in IPCO, because these presentations, and now we're not going a little bit off track here, these presentations that we get in IPCO, and I made a comment there, big and broad, Grace. I said, I want our people in St.Maarten to have the opportunity to hear these type of discussions that are taking place, to take note of the presentations, to be able to ask questions about these presentations. Because so now, of course, it was mentioned there in the context of climate change, it was mentioned about the funds that are available in the Netherlands when it comes to alternative energy. And I'm like, okay, now I got to come back home and ask, why are we not able to access these funds of the, as they call it, the SDE++. Okay. These are funds having to do with energy and energy plans that will then, and I think earmarked for St.Maarten has been over 33 million. I don't want to say euros or dollars, but over the 33 million. And so, is government working on a plan for this money? If not, that's the question. If not, then what is preventing them from doing so? So that all of these little pieces that are out there that we need to be able to bring together.
Yeah, MP, there was a redacted 40-page report jointly from RAC Curaçao and BTP St.Maarten that was submitted, I believe, in August 12, 2025 to Parliament, addressing the tariff structure and billing procedures of NVGEBE which highlighted troubling patterns of discrepancies within the pricing model of the company. I do recall that report being handled in Parliament or discussed to provide transparency to the public on that aspect. Now, the Prime Minister is also said to be in Parliament, I believe it's today or on Friday, on the NVGEBE matter. Why haven't we heard more from that particular redacted report in Parliament, or at least gotten a more detailed follow-up from our elected officials on what was really occurring at GEBE based on the report findings?
I don't know whether to laugh or to cry in connection with that question. I'll tell you why I say this, Grace. Yes. And I was warned because, first of all, this report was supposed to be confidential. But we want to know. The people want to know of this report. So then they made a redacted version. We got the report. So we happy now because look at certain conclusions of this report. When I say we, I mean Parliament in general. So we government, what are you going to do now? Government responded, this going to GB right now, and some of the recommendations that are in that report should be executed by GB. And then, so it went to GB. GB said, no, we disagree with it. We disagree with that report. So we're going to send you the right numbers and figures and calculations. Okay. That's where we are, Chris. That's why I say...
And to this date, nothing.
And to this date, nothing. And that's why I said, I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. Because you get these kind of things and you're like, okay, we've seen a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the first time that it happened. And we have not, that GB would say, yeah, but you got this report. How many reports before that have we not had? And then GB was like, no, I don't agree. And I don't know. But I'll make sure to find that out whether in the meeting on Friday or before, whether, since that was said, whether GB has then officially submitted their counter document to that report. You know what I'm saying? If you say, no, we don't agree with what the BTP RAC study has revealed, okay, then what is the true information, GB?
Did you ask the question?
That's the question that now. And did you, not only that, did government receive such? The last thing that I've heard, no. But maybe.
So is there a follow-up? Has anybody been following up on it?
You know, Grace, I am sure. But remember, in between that time, we had replacement of board members to start with. We had appointment of C-level. And now those who could have been able to shed some light on that report and the reaction by GB, now the most of them decide they're gone.
So basically we're at square one again.
And that's the Dutch acronym that I used and say where we are right now today, as I landed yesterday, to me, when I hear and read and see, is back to square one. That was my answer. As short. Somebody said, but where are we now with GB, and this one resigning and that one resigning, and that one is trying to get conditions applied and whatever have you. It is crazy.
But this document actually, it's a document that you would hope that the next person in charge or the next individual or persons who actually will be sitting now next after Mr. Rogendorf resigns, that he or she, whoever it may be, will actually follow up on this report.
Well, hopefully, because remember what I said, Grace, that GB's first reaction to that report, the RAC BTP report, was, we do not agree with some of the conclusions in this report. Some of the numbers used in this report are not factual. And now I'm paraphrasing, okay, just to get things straight. I'm paraphrasing. Fact is, they did not agree with the outcome that suggested that certain cost-saving measures could have been taken. And then, so the question is, okay, then GB, what is your reaction? What is the reality? And that's the question that I just mentioned that we remained at.
All right. Now, MP, you have been hit over the head quite a few times, not physically, okay? But figuratively speaking, in terms of uncalled or unscheduled meetings of Parliament, mainly from the opposition benches. Now, to your recollection, MP, how many meetings are still to be handled in Parliament, and why isn't there more pressure being applied from the Presidium to address the number of outstanding meetings on the floor of Parliament, especially if it involves bringing ministers to the legislature for questioning. And before you answer that, I want to ask, I want to also add to that is, why aren't the meetings starting on time? As the stipulated time.
Yeah. Both of those questions.
So whichever one you want to start with first.
I want to start with the first one.
Yeah.
And I think, and why I started to react while you were asking, because when you mentioned bring ministers to Parliament. Now, I am a proponent of having parliamentary meetings with or without ministers. And it is something that I want to encourage the members of Parliament to do. We don't need to have a good discussion in Parliament, somebody before us that we could beat up on. You understand what I'm saying? Let us deliberate and debate. Nevertheless, because actually, that is the way our rules of order are structured. And if you want a minister to come in, you have to ask Parliament if you can ask the minister to come in, because you're going to motivate it, and so we have kind of facilitated that discussion. And if you ask for a meeting and you say we would like the minister to be present, then we would accept it like that. Okay, we wouldn't go and ask Parliament, do you agree to ask Minister so-and-so to come in? So we kind of facilitate that. However, you want a meeting and you insist on the minister's presence. The only thing we have not done, and I say we because now I'm also looking at the Secretariat of Parliament, the ones who try to coordinate these meetings happen, is walk over to the government building, hold a minister by hand, and walk back with him or her. You understand? That's the only thing we have not done. But we have been asked, we have been adjusting our schedule. I even say, well, guys, could we meet 5 o'clock? I don't mind. 6 o'clock? Just to have. But if you ask for the minister, and the minister can't come, we can't walk over there, and I was being very dramatic just now, and say, Minister, I'm going to hold your hand, we're going to go over. They say, no, we can't come. Okay, then when can you come, Minister? Then we put them down for a certain date. We have started to send out these requests for the meetings way ahead of time. And Grace, there are a few meetings outstanding. Minister ain't come back. We call them and say, are you ready? And then we often hear, the questions that have been asked regard let's say the hospital, and we're not getting it from the hospital. GB's meeting is one that has been going on for so long, because the answer was, well, we didn't get the information from GB and we can't answer you. You understand?
Right.
So what do you do in a case like that? Say, Minister, come and just sit there with your mouth closed? No, we can't. But this thing, and then you have the second thing, which is asking questions, asking.
Right.
Yeah, well, the question.
The interruptions.
I know. I know. But I wanted to say, Grace, so you have requesting meetings, one, and requesting meetings with the minister present.
Okay.
If you want the minister present, then I can't schedule a meeting if the minister say he or she can't come, or they can't come today or tomorrow. You understand? So that's one thing. But then there's not this many meetings outstanding, like, oh my God. Every time I hear that in Parliament, and usually notifications I use to lament that fact, I would say, turn to my Secretary General, how many meetings we really have outstanding? Okay, so that's one thing. And it's not really that. It's always explained, well, this minister has to come, but he or she said they ain't got the information that you requested, so they ain't coming.
So they can't come.
So that's one thing. But again, I have 50 meetings, I have 20 meetings out there outstanding, for sure not. That's one thing. Secondly, asking questions, okay? So you ask questions. We have several possibilities to ask questions. You either do this in a meeting, you ask for a question hour, or you send written requests for answers to the government. I can provide the public with an overview, but from my observation, lately we have been getting a lot of written answers to questions posed by members of Parliament. Okay. A lot of them, including my own, because as a member of Parliament, I too can, and I too do, in terms of asking questions to a minister. In addition to that, I am part of a coalition, and I need to determine for me, when do I go outside and say I ask the minister questions? When do I just not pick up the phone like most MPs do and ask for information? You understand? So I need to make that determination. No, man, I asking this too often. I'm not going to say to the public I have been asking this. You know, and there's a different approach, whether you're opposition or whether you're coalition when it comes to that asking questions. But again, whenever I hear it, I will ask our Secretary General, give me an overview there, which questions are outstanding. And what we do, we send reminders to the ministers, you know.
Okay, right. Well, what can you do about getting the meeting started at a stipulated time, though?
The only thing...
You have a meeting this morning at 10 o'clock, is that correct?
That's more than correct, yeah.
And then we're going to be waiting there till 10:30.
Yeah, you see, because the thing is...
What happens actually behind the scene?
Okay, so if I have a quorum, because we need quorums.
Correct.
And these quorums, and that might be a little confusing, the quorums differ according to the meeting. But one thing for sure is that when it comes to public meetings, and when I say public meetings, let me call them plenary meetings, so the OV as we call them. I need a majority, so I need at least 8 members for that meeting to get started. Okay. When it comes to committee meetings, the rules are a little different. If you have third parties in a central committee, you could start with factions, etc., etc. Public meeting, I need at least 8 members signed in and in the hall. So you can't come sign in and then go, because I need to count the bodies and make sure that they are there.
Okay.
And then the rules of order allow me to determine 30 minutes after, give 30 minutes for me to have that quorum for the meeting to start.
Understood.
It is as if you have an extra half an hour as a member. No, the starting time is 10 o'clock.
Right.
And just in the event. So what I ask often, I say, members, just let me know. Let me know if you will or will not be there, and then I would know. I don't want the people of St.Maarten sitting there waiting, but the meeting's supposed to start 10, but why she ain't start yet? You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to be there and, well, these ain't come yet, those ain't come yet. Just tell me, and I would know how to deal with it. So, yeah, unfortunate, but I need a quorum. It differs from meeting to kind of meeting to kind of meeting.
All right. Now, MP, finally, do you believe that the governmental structure currently in place since its establishment in back 10 has produced meaningful progress for the country? Yes, we are responsible for our own governance. However, our dependence on external support from the Netherlands will also always be a factor, because we have not yet matured and elevated our society to the point where our island is truly flourishing on a multifaceted level to show responsible and efficient governance. What is your take on St.Maarten currently, 16 years post 10-10-10?
Grace, I got that question so often, especially again in the last couple of days. Yeah, why?
Okay.
Because Mrs. Maria van der Sluis Plans, our St.Maarten representative, doing the evaluation, not St.Maarten representative, she's doing the evaluation, but she's from St.Maarten.
Correct.
And she made a similar comment about us not being able to cope with the structure required of a country, okay? And then also it was referenced in the press that sometime last year, the Prime Minister had made a similar statement. Oh, we got too many institutions, basically suggesting that we are too big for, or we can't hold up our own pants, as they would say. When I heard the Prime Minister say it in the first instance, 2 thoughts that immediately came to mind was that, while I can understand you expressing your sentiments, but I think as government, when you say that, you also got to give some type of solution that you will be working to. If you establish that is the case, what are we doing about it? And then the second thought that quickly came to mind was like, we got to be careful because there are some of these institutions that are the bedrock of our democracy. They are the checks and balances. The ombudsman is to make sure that we don't get a set of parliamentarians who decide to come with a law that, you understand? That's why you have like the ombudsman, the function of the ombudsman.
Correct.
The council of advice. They look at our laws. So I'm like, yeah, should we review our structure? Oh, most definitely. But be careful that we don't start to tear the image of our democratic institutions that are part of our checks and balances. I'm very, very particular where that is concerned. But as I thought it out further, I was like, but that doesn't stop us from looking at institutions like the main voting bureau and the electoral council, and see even the integrity chamber, if we somehow can maintain the functions, but see if we can downsize,
Okay.
you know. So to answer your question, yeah, I think we're due a review, and I have been stating this for a while, because remember, Grace, and that was the answer to the question when it was asked again recently. Remember that we took over a lot of things when we became country in 10. We took them over from the Netherlands, Antilles for sure, some of them even from the Dutch system, because we wanted to show that we were, you know, the braafste in the class. We know we gonna carry this thing.
Own, right.
Oh yeah, we want our constitution. No, we will never, you know, let our democracy fall. But that comes not only with a cost in terms of money, but also with the capacity to carry it. And if we're saying now, let us just take our time. We don't have to rush and knock down institutions tomorrow, cancel them out. But let us very soberly and for ourselves on St.Maarten have that discussion. And it needs to be a process. I don't want nobody to feel, oh boy, they're saying that we should get rid of constitutions because they want their laws to be checked and whatever have you and whatever have. No, that's not the case. But a review of the system and how we have been able to manage, because something that people don't often realize is that not only do we have those type of institutions, but we, as part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, we also have to pay in to general task of the kingdom. We have to pay into the court system. We have to pay into the Coast Guard, etc., etc. You know. So again, we want to show that we can be one of you, but it came with a huge responsibility. And can we now assess that? Should we now be small, and we are small, and smart with it? You know what I'm saying? Should we suggest that our health care, that we look for bigger alliances rather than trying to show that we can carry our own health care costs with all of the circumstances that we're faced now with aging and chronic diseases and all of those things? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So are we willing to talk about that, or we gonna start to bring up the autonomy thing? No, we can't have an insurance, health insurance that we share with others because we got to do it ourselves. We got to get away from that.
Challenging
and
though.
That,
right.
And that's
costing us
that
dearly.
That discussion we should honestly have, and I have no problem to push for that discussion.
Right.
And but we need everybody to be part of it, Grace.
And
we need
at
everybody to be part of that national dialogue, for which I have been calling now for a while.
Prime Minister was in Parliament today, this morning.
That's
right. Regarding the hospital, basically.
The VSA matters. That's the way it's
and that we discussed this morning. Right.
Yeah.
So does this in any way shake the not the opposition but the coalition in any form? Because you stood firmly there on at the last meeting of the vote of no confidence with Minister Brugge, and you made it quite clear that you are part of a coalition. Hey, listen, we got to do what we got to do to make it work, huh?
And you know, and I said it yes, Grace, you are correct. You are so correct. And then I used the word, and I said, you know, this is politics. And then especially the some of the opposition members, it was like, you hear what she said? She says politics, so it's only about politics. And I'm like, you know, you all definitely understand what I'm saying, and you agree with me. You ain't gonna say it, but you agree with me. And I think it was, I hated to be in that situation. I hated it, Grace. I tell everybody that. And I said to, but I also realized that the status quo could not have continued. And what do you have? And I try to explain it as simple as I can. And you know, and I need to remark here, Minister Brugge. And I'm going to use this opportunity to, like I did to him personally, you know, thank him for his work and his service. Why? And I mentioned this too before. I said, you know, with all of the ministers, he is one of them. He and his ministry, who I could call, and not only call and ask a question and say to them, I think, you should have a council for the elderly. Next thing I heard, MP, we're working on this, we're having a session, whatever have you, you know? And let me add, Grace, I think this is important, and I said I wasn't going to mention it, but I'm going to mention it. When that meeting was over, it is I walked up to Minister Brooke like I do with every minister who is at a meeting, and I reached out to shake his hand. Minister Brooke said then to me, but give me a hug now. Minister Brooke said then to me,
wow,
but give me a hug now. That's what we always do. You understand? So anybody want to give second meaning to this matter of taking leave of Minister Brugge, I'm going to set that straight right now. And so to come back to it, and a minister, a party of the coalition says to the other members of the coalition, we had proposed Minister Brugge for a ministry in here. Okay, like we do everybody. I proposed my two candidates, everybody proposed their candidates. And then the same party says to the coalition, the member who I propose for that position, I can't maintain him in that position. Unfortunate. I don't know how I would have approached it had I found myself as a party leader and a part of the coalition in that same situation. But that was how it came to us. And the question is, what do you do as a coalition? Do I, as the leader of the Democratic Party, part of the coalition, stand by and say, that your problem, boy? Or you see how you deal with it? And whether this means that you would have a minister not wanted by his party in the Council of Ministers, is that what, or we would have waited to see how the chips would have fallen and who would have tried to get rid of who, and then get a political crisis on you know. Right. So all of those considerations, Grace, and I chose for openly saying why I felt I had to do what I did, and all the other members, I guess they did the same thing. They explained, you know, what they did and why they had to do it. But in my particular case, and with the Democratic Party, none of my members in Parliament felt good about the situation before us. But we also understood the bigger picture and chose for that approach.
MP, you've been knocked down. Not once, not twice, and I liked when you said that on the floor of Parliament too. You've been knocked down, but you keep coming back.
That's the thing, you know. And
that's what it is.
And I told this to Minister Brugge. I told it to him personally. I said, Minister Brugge, you know, I have faced these type of situations on more than one occasion. I say, and a very memorable one was when I got a motion of no. It nearly came down to a motion of no confidence by the coalition, because back then I'm talking Island Territory times. Back then we had coalitions too, and I let it come right to the end of thing, and then I said, okay, here's my resignation. Listed off a whole set of things that I thought I had done in the interest of the people, and then I said I will be back.
And you are.
And
you came back.
And different positions and different qualities. And yeah, you know, so, but I told it because and I, again, Grace, I want to repeat, that situation was unfortunate. In fact, it should not have lasted as long as it did, because that was not good for the minister, it was not good for the Council of Ministers, and it definitely was not good for St.Maarten.
Absolutely not. And I always say one thing is that when you fall, make sure you fall on your back. Because you're looking up to the sky. It's always easy to get back up.
You understand what I'm saying?
MP, you have to go. You have to leave. I want to say go, but
so now we're not going to start 10.
So you see, you can throw that right back at me now, because I asked you about meetings starting on time, but let me take the blame for that.
I got my 30 minutes though, so okay, I'll be there in time.
All right. In closing, MP,
no, I just want to thank you really, Grace, for the opportunity. Again, we were trying it for a while, and you know, and just to come and just talk to the people.
Yeah.
Of course, I hear the questions that are out there. You had some of them, and I hope to have addressed them as best as I can. But you know, I'm there, and people know where to reach me, how to reach me. You know how many notices I got. You better be on Grace tomorrow, because she said you will be there. And you know, I like, okay, guys, okay.
Absolutely.
Jet lag or not? Yes, but thank you. But thank you so much, Grace. It was really a pleasure, and my thanks to all who have been part of it. You know, with your comments, your criticism, whatever. But at least you're part of the discussion, and that's important.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you coming in this morning because of your busy schedule. I know you're gonna live that jet lag there, but Mahmoud, it's nice to have you back home.
Thank you
safe,
so
and
much.
your entire team for doing such a great job over the past few days at the IPCO meeting,
so
representing St.Maarten. And to you, to the radio listeners, I want to thank each and every one of you. The MP has to leave now. I want to thank her for sharing some of her time with us this morning. She's a hard woman not to find, but you will see her, but you got to just make sure, try and catch her to get an appointment for an interview. But I was fortunate since last week, and she told me me, Grace, I'm going to the Netherlands for IFCO, and I'll see you when I get back. And thankfully, again, like I say, thank you so much. The viewers as well, thank you all for joining me here this morning, and I'll be back again